Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the Tetrachords by Cycle Instruments. If you haven't seen part 1, there is a link somewhere on the screen or down below or something like that. Go check that out first before you watch this. Enjoy. Okay, so there's a couple of other little features I thought you might want to check out on this while we're here. And the first one being that there's the ability to actually use these as a keyboard. And if you've got that going out over MIDI, which I have to a polyphonic module, then yes, you can play chords with it. And of course, anything you do with these interacts with it as well. So that's really cool. And the other feature that's in there is that there is a step sequencer. And this is kind of like a traditional, SH101 kind of style in a way. So if we now put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. It counts those as it goes around. And it's using the trigger still. So again, depending on what trigger you send it and the duration of that, you can interact with the sequence. And of course, all this works with it. When you are in that mode, just to note that the path doesn't do anything because obviously it's playing through the sequence in which you've inputted the notes. So, yeah. Just thought you might want to know that. Okay, so here is an example. I've just basically got 3 voices, polycinematic, chord, 4ms again. And this is an example of using sequences that are an odd amount of time. So instead of sending out 16th notes in some cases to them, I'm sending out a pattern of say 11 notes over 15. And in some cases I'm sending out maybe 23 notes over like 37 steps. So you get this never-ending kind of changing, triggering of notes, because they've all got different, each oscillator's effectively got a different amount of triggers that are constantly shifting around in time. So you get this sense of familiarity, but it's always moving. And then of course within that we could add some more patterns that are changing over time. So there I'm just every now and then we're getting those notes moving around. We could do the same thing here. Let's add a couple more patterns. Probably best not to do this while it's sequencing around, but I just like the idea of just like adding to this, rightly or wrongly, as it's playing. I appreciate I've got a lot of delay going on and stuff, but even without it, you get a sense of this movement that's going around. So up until now, we've been using multiple oscillators and we've been sending the individual tracks out to those individual oscillators, and that's all very well. But if you've got a module like this, which is the Cubit Chord, this module lends itself to playing chords in the Eurorack land. Essentially, you can send 4 different CVs into it, and it will play chords basically by using those CV inputs. It will make sure that they are harmonically related. It's a great module for that, and it pairs really well with the Tetrachords. So what we can do here is we can send chords from the Tetrachord into the Eurorack module chord, and it really simplifies the process instead of using multiple different oscillators and that kind of thing. The other cool thing about this is that there's one tune dial for all of the oscillators, so you only have to tune it once, and you know that it's in tune with itself, so it's all good. So okay, so how do we do that? So there's a really cool mode in here that we can do. We can just go, I know Tetrachords, why don't you send the first track out of all 4 outputs. Output 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you'll see that they're all now blue on the outputs. So that means anything that we put on track 1 will send out of all 4 outputs. Let's just turn those up. So every time there's a trigger, we get the next note, and it's going into this same oscillator here. That's fine, that's in ARP mode. If we turn it to chord mode, we now get chords in Eurorack land. And the same things apply if we play around with things like the spread amount. Now the path won't do anything because it's not playing through them, it's playing a chord, so it doesn't matter what we do there. But the inversion still will have an effect. And you can, even though this is playing a chord, you can still say, well, the bottom ones I want to be in minor and the top one in major. I don't know why you'd want that, but you can. So there we go. Nice, simple Eurorack chords. This module pairs so well with this. This is the first thing that came to mind when I thought about using this. Now what we can do is simultaneously use the USB output as well as the CV and send that into the computer and build up a track using both the computer and our Eurorack. So let's do that because we could do it all simultaneously. So here we are at the computer, and by the way, you just go into your settings, plug it in, and Tetrachords pops up. I didn't need to install any drivers or anything like that, and it looks like there's a remote option there. So I wonder if these dials actually kick out MIDI CC and you can use it for control changes. Looks like it. So what we can do is kick out MIDI over USB to the computer. So track 1 will kick out over MIDI channel 1, track 2, channel 2, 3 and 4. You could change that, but that's how it's set up by default. So if we send that chord out to, I've just got pigments here, a similar different sound. Well, it is similar but different. Let's show you what's going on there as the chords are coming in as well. So you can see the notes coming in, and as I change the spread and things, that's also reflected in the computer. Nice. Maybe we'll add another couple of just something like that. So now we've got a mixture of Eurorack with the computer there. And let's maybe bring in some kind of bass sound here. So channel 2 Go to track 2. Let's just put in a note there. Let's give it a different trigger pattern, because remember, it's still listening to the trigger inputs here. Yeah, something like that. And then MIDI channel 3, so if we go to track 3, let's just put in a couple of notes there. And let's give it a different rhythm. Maybe we'll change the octave. Sit that in there. Nice. I'll just show you the MIDI notes coming in on that channel, and the MIDI notes coming in on the kind of bass there. Let's add maybe the octave. Cool, and maybe bring the hi-hats back in. And the kick drum. This is something as well to be mindful of. Because this isn't a traditional sequencer, remember, you have to do a manual reset. So if at any point you do stop the sequence, hit the manual reset, and then when you hit play, it'll just make sure that the first triggers that it receives are the first notes that it plays. So let's say we've got a cool little jam going on like this, really like it, and what would typically happen is, as we play around with things, it will write that, and it will remember that. So if we have a second pattern, so that pattern's been copied now, whatever happens in a pattern will get written as you change the dials. So well, in this pattern here, and I change the dial down, it will remember that. Whereas when you're in the second pattern, let's put the dial back up. And you'll see the light change there. So it writes, it's like writing automation in real time. But you may not want that to happen. Let's copy that pattern again a couple of times. Oops, pattern. So we've got 4 patterns now. And what we could do maybe is put it in this different mode. Instead of write mode, we can put it in what's called read mode. So now it doesn't matter what I do, because it won't write it. It'll just read what I'm doing. And then when it gets back around to the pattern it was on, it will put it back as it was, as stored in memory. And if we go into jam mode, what this does, and this is really interesting, is let's say you go pretty crazy and suddenly you go really up into hyperspace like that. what would happen naturally is if you go to a different pattern that's got a different result to it, it would sound, there'd be a massive dynamic change in your music, and you might not want that. So what Jam does, it carries over some of those changes that you make to make sure that it musically flows between each pattern. And I think I think that's a first. I don't think I've seen that in a sequencer, because it's fair to say that there's times when I've been creating a pattern, create a second pattern, third pattern, and you make some drastic changes, and when you go back to your original pattern, it doesn't sit very well. So with this, you've kind of got that peace of mind that when it's in jam mode, it'll carry over certain elements to make sure that it kind of flows and it's musical, which is great. Of course, if we go back into right mode, anything that we do will be there forever. Really nice. Kind of ever changing. So there we go, really interesting module, and it's the first one by this company, and I have to say I think they've done a really good job with this one. It comes packed with a ton of I/O on it, and the ability to use simultaneous MIDI over USB, MIDI over TRS, and also the CV outputs all at the same time is a really killer feature. And it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a melodic and harmonic playground for your studio, and it allows non-musicians like me the ability to craft really interesting ideas and sequences just by turning a few dials and pushing a few buttons. But it also allows those people with harmony and theory understanding to go beyond what I've been able to do and actually apply that theory and knowledge and their understanding to make perhaps more meaningful and purposeful sequences than I've been able to do. For me, it's just been a pleasure to use. I mean, you can get really lost in all the various dials and playing around with things like the spread and the amount of that, and the path is just such a really interesting way of connecting with this module and taking what is a very simple idea and suddenly making it seem even more complex. And if you want it to go really chaotic, then take advantage of the 6 mod inputs and just send CV and voltage all over the place and get it to play around with all of those different structures that it enables you to do. It is chunky, it's 36 HP, so it does take up a lot of space in your rack, but I think the size can be permitted given the fact of the amount of functionality that this can provide for you. Now, as of filming this video, the Tetrachords is only available from the Cycle Instruments website, which is in Australia. So for those of us over here across the pond, you're looking at about just over $1,000 Australian dollars, which is, I believe, around 575 UK pounds, plus your shipping, plus any taxes that come in. So I think they're looking to change that, but for now that's your only available option, as they are not actually selling through any resellers at this current time. So in my honest opinion, I've really enjoyed using this. It has actually enabled me, and it has bridged that gap between my lack of understanding of harmony and melody, and has allowed me to create some sequences that just make me sound brilliant. But not only that, it's just been really, really fun to use. I think this quest to build modules in the past that allows you to do quite complex harmonies and melodic arrangements has either gone down the path where they're either just too complicated to use. With this, even though you've got things like the different scales on the front, and you've got things on there that I look at immediately that was a little bit like, oh, what does all of this mean? Actually, the learning curve on this was very, very quick, and I soon realized that I actually didn't really have to understand any theory or harmony. But one of the things that I will say is that it's actually allowed me to actually learn a little bit along the way because of the visual feedback that you get when you start playing around with the notes that you're using. So yeah, there you go. If you're looking for a module that offers you multiple outputs, multiple tracks, that allows you to do some very complex, very easy sequencing across those multiple tracks, then this is probably the one for you. I think it's well priced, and there are a lot of other functions in here that I didn't get time to go through today. So if you'd like to look at them, do go check out their YouTube channel, because they've done quite a comprehensive video manual of actually how to use all of the features of this module. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it useful and inspiring. If you've got any questions, do leave it down below in the comments, and I'll try and respond. For now, I'll say goodbye. Thanks for watching.